Hi, I'm Greg Schaefer, and welcome to the Virtual CISO Moment. We've got one more short episode today. This is from the ISACA conference in Middle Tennessee back a few months ago in March 2025, Cool Springs, Tennessee. Stacy Mill joins us. She is a global CIO, CTO, CISO, and board member. She also was very much involved in the coordination, planning, and execution of the conference. Sure, you're going to enjoy this conversation. Check it out. Hi, I'm Greg Schaefer, back here at ISACA, Middle Tennessee, with Stacy Mill. Stacy, thank you so much for taking a few moments to talk with me.
Well, thank you for being here. This is our first ISACA conference in Middle Tennessee.
I know, very excited about it and excited to be here. So tell me a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your association also with ISACA and a little bit about the conference.
So I've been in IT for over 30 years. I started in the full stack on the non-security side, if you will. As security started to develop, I was just the person who knew how the stack was run and how it was built and had to learn security, right? Mm-hmm. But as the first CISO at Humana, Yum Brands, Car Global, Spirit AeroSystems, then I was asked to run a state government and took over as the CIO for the state of Kansas with 18 CIOs under me right before the pandemic hit.
Oh, I'm so sure talk that was about fun.
Yes, that was some chaos, but it was exciting because we were not only taking care of technical debt, we were evolving so quickly into the cloud, into AI, very exciting. But then I took an opportunity here in Nashville with Nashville Electric, and I left after 3.5 years to start my own companies around cyber and around AI and really be more of an enabling voice. Mm-hmm. And that's what I found from ISACA, because ISACA was where I got my first certifications. I got my C-RISC and my CISM because all the people on my team had been failing their CISSP certifications. Mm-hmm. I had never heard of ISACA before, but I went and I thought, hey, I'm going to study hard. I'm going to do this. ISACA certifications, the C-RISC and the CISM, were actually harder than the CISSP.
Oh, is that right?
It really was. So I kind of, if I had to do it over again, I probably would have started a little bit different because I started with the hardest one, which was C-RISC for me, because it had a lot of P&L, not a lot of tech, a lot of P&L and fiduciary responsibility things around risk, right? And so that's really how I came into learning more about risk awareness and risk mitigations, more so than vulnerability management.
You know, I hate to admit it, I started studying for my C-RISC when I was at bank in 2010. I have yet to take the test.
It was a hard one, but I tell you what, it really set me up to help my evolution as from technologist to business, and being able to speak more business acumen, with more acumen, I should say. And I really enjoyed it. So it's been something I think that really, because I didn't get my first cert until 2018.
So tell me about the conference. What was the genesis behind this, and what is the focus of the conference?
So we're one of the largest and one of the fastest growing chapters in North America. And really where we're moving past technology. We're moving just past compliance and audit to really talk about governance and how does risk and technology fit within a business, right? Mm-hmm. And so taking that forward is really how we've changed our chapter meetings. Our chapter meetings are focused on that GRC and technology cyber, of course, but we've added CPAs. We have a membership with NASBA so that our CPEs for ISACA also fit into the CPAs. So it really brought governance, risk, and technology all to the table. And that's why our chapter is growing so much. And that's what we've tried to replicate in our conference. So we have leaders from the C-suite, chief risk officers, chief financial officers, CEOs, CIOs, and chief technology officers and CISOs coming together to talk. That's what makes us different, is the business is here.
Yeah, and I've spoken with several people at the conference, and they're really enjoying it so far. So it seems like it's been a resounding success thus far.
Yes.
And I know we still have a couple of the as we're recording right now, we just got into the afternoon session. So But I want to get back to government because I've got a little bit of a soft spot for government, having worked as CISO for Metropolitan Davidson County, Nashville, back many years ago. Government, I know, has some rather unique, or can have some unique, technology and information security risk.
Yes.
From your perspective, today, what would be like one of the higher risks that they face?
Well, number one, it has to be in staffing. They cannot recruit. The pay rates, things like that. And they wanted people local. So when I was in Kansas, I was told I could not rehab any remote employees, and I couldn't use the cloud. And I kept thinking, where am I? This is 2020, 2019. And government has really, they're behind the game because I started with DoD security in the early 2000s with DISCAP and DoD security. And that's where NIST came from. NIST drives a lot of the National Institute for Standards and Technology, drive a lot of the DoD securities, Department of Defense securities, Department of Energy, things of that nature. So when I was at Humana a long time ago doing audit, we had auditors coming in to audit our security for the government, right? Mm-hmm. And what killed me was they would bring all of these rules. You got to do all this stuff, but they'd never done it. And how I knew they'd never done it, because when we applied all the rules, nothing ran. Everything fell over as soon as the logs filled up. Systems wouldn't run. They sure wouldn't perform because there was too much logging and too much noise. Mm-hmm. But they thought that was good. They thought, we can see everything. We're going to listen to everything. We're going to check every single solitary thing.
Oh, good luck.
Right? And they wanted to do it on their prem. So doing that really isolated them. It didn't enable them. And so what really happened was the pandemic. When the pandemic came, all of these federal and state government and municipal things, people couldn't access them. They didn't have VPNs. A lot of them didn't even have remote capabilities.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing I think that has changed. So coming out of the pandemic, we started literally, I had to call Google. I had to call Amazon. I had to call other companies and say, how can I get your product? And they would tell me, I'm sorry, we don't sell it to GovSpace.
Right.
And so we had to really turn that on its side. And so when I was defending those networks, trying to bring up, the Departments of Labor systems fell over, Department of Revenue systems fell over. Once we got them up and stable, because they were built on the backside of mainframe systems, running TN3270 emulation, which I'm sure most of our audience doesn't know anything about. I remember
3270, though. I was an IBM
and they were still doing it. So they were doing the mainframe screen scrapes, right? Uh-huh. And then producing it back in an HTTPS format, but it was just replying back to a message. It wasn't really an integrated system.
Right.
So we had to jettison all of that stuff. None of it was working. You literally could not even apply for a license online. You couldn't apply for your driver's license online. Now, all of these different systems have started to come up because of the pandemic. And there wasn't a way to interface to keep government running. So what we did in literally 3 months, not 3 years, I knew there were things called LLMs. I knew about RPA. I knew about ML and machine learning. GovSpace had none of that. Also, GovSpace didn't have the online presence that an executive or a corporate company would, but they needed it, and they needed it overnight, because how are they going to hit the constituents, right? So we literally walked all 18 agencies through what are your web capabilities, work together on contracts so that we could stabilize across those and standardize those platforms so fast. We even moved a data center that they had been trying to move in 6 years. We moved it in 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Because we got everybody online. And that's what I think has really changed since the pandemic is now technology and business. There's no longer a line. Right. There's now they know they need each other. And so when I was calling Google and saying, hey, I'd like to adopt some chatbots, they're like, well, we don't even have T's and C's for GovSpace. I'm like, don't worry about it. I've got the governor's approval. We're going. Then I called some of the Stanford startups, because when I would call Akamai did not have any GovSpace reps. Nobody in GovSpace was buying from them. So I didn't have that protection that I was used to. Guess what? Cloudflare came along, called me, cold called me and said, we have something for the government agencies to help you with DDoS and all this other stuff. And I knew what it was. So I ran at them. I ran Cloudflare for 1.5 years with no T's and C's. And if it hadn't been for that defense, I wouldn't have even got my websites up. Then secondly, another group came called App Dynamics. Again, startup out of Stanford. They called me and said, we've got something to help visualize. We know what you're fighting. You can't see it. Let us help you. I said, what is it? And they said, it's agentless. I said, I have nothing to lose. These systems are laying over. And quickly brought them in, got all that streamlined. Again, procurement and government is hard to get past, right?
Right.
But we had those free passes for a little while. So I took great advantage of those. And that is how we got our systems back up in 4 days. Using those two partners. We had no other reps, but I called Google, started giving them all of our stuff to learn on so we could get the chat bots going. Then we called Amazon and said, we need your engines, your quantum computing, so that we can start to track the spread.
Right.
And then lastly, we brought in all of our vendors, and where we had obstacles like a data center that we couldn't move, I knew that it wasn't going to work. There wasn't good circuits. As soon as we popped that circuit up, we had that site fully up in 100% up in 6 months because they had been practicing the rollout.
Right.
So remember, I'm bringing you back to government. It was didn't have the culture of adoption that they do now.
Right.
And that's been because of the pandemic.
And that's an amazing story that the pandemic actually had something positive that came out of it. Well, congratulations on a great conference. Thank you for spending a few moments with me.
Appreciate you.
I appreciate you taking the time.
Have a good day.
All right. Thanks.